curious, just with your talking about criticism, I'm wondering, did you go to an MFA program? And how was your workshop experience?
Interestingly, I did go to an MFA program. It was actually called an MA, but it was an MFA. We just had to get half our classes in the English department. But I studied with Dirk Walcott and Robert Pinsky, and I was in a high-powered small group of poets, 7 of us. And I'd gone to study with Robert, but ended up connecting more with Derek, although I've stayed in touch with Robert now over time, much longer. And my goal, eventually, I realized, was to get their voices into my head rather than everybody's workshoppy voices in my head. Because even now, people say, well, you should have a writing group or a workshop, and I'm not interested in everybody's opinions, because I think they're opinions. And if I can't figure out what's right for myself, it's not going to just be a bunch of random people who, when you're in a workshop situation, I think you want to be heard, so you want to say something. So it was I don't remember where the story was from. Someone was telling a story about this girl writing a poem, maybe it's just a myth, a girl writing a poem in an MFA workshop, and it was about a night with this lover or person, and she used the term, I think, make love, and everybody else in the workshop was upset, and they said, I don't think that's the right term, I think they had sex or this or that, and everyone said, you're fucking him, and eventually, after much discussion, when usually in a workshop you're not allowed to respond, after 45 minutes of it, she burst into tears. I think Robert Pinsky told us this story. She burst into tears and yelled at everyone and said, this is not a made-up thing. This was my actual life, and this was my boyfriend, and he hurt me. And yes, we were making love. And you're all wrong. And I just thought, what a great story. How perfect, because what's accurate, what's not, and it doesn't always help to get these kinds of workshoppy criticisms. We had criticized one woman for being too much of a feminist and putting too much feminism in the poetry when we're like, we're here to write poetry. Poetry comes first. She's like, no, my feminism comes first. We're like, no, here you're a poet. And so interestingly, this is like a weird thing because of course you can put your feminism in a poet, but she was diehard dedicated at the time to creating a certain kind of poem. And we're like, but it smells of that kind of poem, which feels inauthentic to the actual poem. Why don't you just write a poem and not try to get that in there? And it worked for her. Eventually she figured it, she got it right, and she was still writing those kinds of poems, but I think it was alarming to her. Like, it was a shock, and she thought, well, I could write about exactly what I want to write about. And we're like, well, we're a little bit disinterested when you go in this direction, because it doesn't speak the same way as something else. And there was another criticism of another guy who was writing a similar kind of poem that was always in tercets, always 3 lines, and it was always one line flowed into the next line, and it was a certain kind of longing poem, always homoerotic, about gay love, and it was very, very sexual, and he couldn't figure out a way. He still writes the same poem basically, and so he got famous for writing this kind of poem, but he never wanted to transform out of that kind of poem or learn something else, because he said, I can't do the other thing. And I struggled with that too. I wrote really dense, tight, not formal, but very jagged poems, almost like Hopkins. And I got so good at it that I couldn't do anything else. And at some point someone said to me, can you stop writing poems where you have 3 words, and then a colon, and then something else, and then a verb? And I was like, am I doing that? That was actually useful criticism, but I think sometimes in a workshop, I don't know, you have to get a couple people in your life over time whose voices you want and admire in your head, and they teach you something. So it's what they're teaching you, not everything about them that goes in your head. And that worked for me with both Robert and Derek. And then I just stuck with their voices for a long time, and maybe too much so.